All right, to finish up the function class here, we're thinking of some methods that, and this is not all of them, but thinking of some methods that are similar for all functions. Well, the way that we get the y-intercept for all functions is the same. This is the code that I've put in here. Right? It's basically whenever it crosses the y-axis, x is 0. Right? So if we can substitute 0 into the function, we would get the y-intercept. And it's asking for a point. So it'll be the x-coordinate would be 0, the y-coordinate would be wherever it crosses the y-axis. That's true for any function, right? This is just some random function. But that's where the y-intercept is. And we're going to try to do a max, get max, which is going to return the point that is at the highest, so the highest y value between an interval. So in this case, a call to the method getMax, 1.0 to 4.0, so between these two numbers should be like around here. This is the highest point on the graph. So 2.1, 2.7, yeah, like right there. Okay. And we're also going to do it at getMin. Same thing. Okay, so if we went from 0 to 6, it'll be 5.2 to -8. Or 5.2, -8 as a coordinate. All right, so let's go to function. Let's create these three methods. So these are not abstract. Get y-intercept. And the reason they're not abstract is because we're implementing them in this method, in this class. It's not like get y where we have to do it later, like in the line class or the quadratic class. Here we know how to get the y-intercept of any function. Right? So we know the x-coordinate is going to be 0. Let me get the y-coordinate. That would be get y 0. And you might say, well, we don't know how to get y yet, but it will have to be implemented. So it's going to implement it the way it's supposed to there. Let's create that point, which is a new point. 0 is the x-coordinate, and then y would be the y-coordinate. And then we return p. That's the y-intercept. The x-coordinate is 0. The y-coordinate is whatever the y-coordinate is when we put 0 in. That's the y-coordinate. Now the other two will be a little bit tougher. Public, but if we can get one, the other one's going to be really easy, right? So let's do get max. I think that's what I called it. Yeah, get max and get min. So get max, the highest value. And it's going to take a lower bound and an upper bound, two floats. Okay? Because, and you could, if you wanted to, you could just always do this as the x min and the x max on the graph. But we might want to get the max even if it's not on the graph. But just give two values here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to say float. Well, you can do this two ways, or a couple ways. Let me create a point object called max. Alright, and it'll be just lower, which is the first x coordinate. Okay, and then get y of lower, as that'll be the first point. That'll be the xy coordinate whenever x is lower. And then I'm just going to check all of the points or floats. F equals lower, f less than or equal to upper, f plus equals 0.01. So it's similar to that graph. All right, when we draw the things, I'm going through a lot of x coordinates here. F is going to be the x coordinate. But what I'm going to figure out is if get y of f is greater than max dot y, right? That's the y coordinate of max, the point. Means it's higher. And you also could just do, well, well, you could just keep track of the highest y coordinate here as well, but if we have it as a point, so if it's greater than y, I'm going to let max be equal to a new point where f is the x coordinate and get y of f is the y coordinate. Okay, so f is like, if I can look at a graph here, f is like each one of these x coordinates in here. It starts at 0, then it goes to 0.01, then it goes to 0.02 x coordinate. We got the get y method to figure out what the y coordinate is. When that y coordinate is higher than the current highest value, we're going to reassign it to be the maximum. So it's going to keep changing here until max is set to this point, and then we're going to start coming back down. And then when we check these y values, it's not going to be bigger, so we're just not going to change it. All right, so that would be for get max. So at the end of that for loop, we can return max, and that's going to be the highest point. Okay, now I'm just going to do this a different way just because it's a little, maybe a little less confusing, maybe. Well, I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose we created points, is to be able to talk about x and y coordinates at the same time. But float high x equals lower float high y equals get y of lower. And then I can say if get y of f is greater than high y, which is just the highest y coordinate, then I can set, have to do two things here. Notice instead of doing just one thing, I have to do two. I have to change the min and the max, or the x coordinate. High x equals f, high y equals get y of f. Okay, and I am returning a point. So even when at the end, I have the x coordinate and the y coordinate that are where y is highest, I have to return a point. So high x, high y. Okay, and it's going to be the exact same thing for get min. I mean, I don't have to change the wording of these, but it might be confusing if I didn't. Let me call this low x, low y, so it's when the y coordinate is the lowest, and then I just need to make sure that I change. I'm going to reassign when I get a value lower than the current low. When I get a value lower than the current lowest, I'm going to reassign. So let me go back to this. I am trying this get min. Well, we'll see it. From -8 to 8. And I'm printing it. Okay, so alright, that's what I need to do. From -8 to 8. Well, the intercept is 0.6. That looks good. And then the minimum from -8 to 8, which is basically anywhere in here, should be basically -2.5 and -0.25. So this is this point right here, -2.5, -0.25. That's the minimum. Okay, it won't have a maximum, or it'll for a maximum it'll just give you probably the very first point, because that's when it will be the highest. Or actually, it would be bigger over here. But it's just like a calculator. It's going to give you a value, but it's when x is 8 way over here and it's way up at 109 y value. Okay, but really mins and maxes are more interesting whenever it's changing, right? Okay, so that is the different methods for the function class. We got the y-intercept, we got get max, and we got get min.